The red mountains of dawn rise like the ruins of something older than memory. At the base of one low ridge, where the rock opens into a narrow shelf of flat ground, a tower stands. 3 stories of pale stone, unremarkable, the kind of place a map would pass over without marking. But 3 men stand before its door in the late afternoon heat, and that changes what it is entirely. Ned Stark pulls his horse to a stop. He is 20 years old, and he has just won a war. The rebellion is over. Robert Baratheon is being crowned in King's Landing, and Ned is here in the Red Mountains of Dawn because he has a sister somewhere in that tower, and every mile of the war he has been riding toward her. 6 men ride at his back. Good men, veterans of a campaign that has already cost too much. He knows the 3 men before him. Sir Oswell Went stands on the left. The black bat of House Went on his helm. Sir Gerald Hightower, the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, holds the centre, old and immovable and fierce. And on the right stands Sir Arthur Dayne, and Ned knows him by the sword before he knows him by anything else. The blade hangs at Arthur's hip in a pale scabbard, the hilt the colour of bone, the colour of milk. Dawn, the sword that goes not to the Lord's heir, but to the knight of House Dayne, deemed worthy enough to carry it. No knight of that house has been worthy of it in a generation. Until Arthur. Ned has heard the stories. Every man in Westeros has heard the stories. "I looked for you on the Trident," Ned says. Arthur Dayne says nothing. He looks at Ned with eyes that are not unkind, and that will not move. "We were not at the Trident," Sir Gerald says. Ned looks past them at the tower door. He thinks of Lyanna. He has been thinking of Lyanna since the moment Robert called his banners. "Then we know our duty," Ned says. Sir Arthur Dayne draws Dawn. The fight is fast and terrible. There is no parley, no hesitation on either side. Ned's companions are veterans, men who have lived through a war. It makes no difference. Lord Willem Dustin falls first. Then Martin Castle, then Theo Wool, then Ethan Glover, then Sir Mark Riswell, each of them going down in the red dust of the mountains, with the sun still beating on their armour. Sir Gerald Hightower dies at Ned's hand, the old man still pressing forward until he stops. Sir Oswell Whent dies cursing. Arthur Dayne does not die. He fights 2 men at once, Dawn in his right hand and a second sword in his left, and he is everything the stories said he was and then some. The pale blade arrives always somewhere unexpected. Ned survives only because his one remaining companion slips around behind Dayne and drives a blade into his back. The blow is mortal. Anyone who knows wounds knows it the moment it lands. Arthur Dayne does not fall. He staggers. He drops the second sword. He goes to one knee in the red dirt, Dawn still in his hand, tilting toward the earth. Blood spreads beneath his armour. His breathing slows. He does not fall. And then, from somewhere above, through the tower's high window, comes the thin, furious sound of a newborn crying. Ned looks up at the tower, then at Dayne, then at the door. "Go," Dayne says. His voice has slowed, but it is still there. Ned goes. The stairs are narrow and cold, and the crying grows louder with each step. He pushes through the door at the top and sees his sister. Lyanna Stark is dying in a bed of blood. She has always been too alive for any room she was ever in, fierce and quick and impossible to hold still. She looks at Ned now with eyes that are too bright, and she reaches out her hand, and he drops to his knees beside her and takes it. She pulls him close and whispers. He bends down to hear her over the baby's crying. He promises. He does not know exactly what he is promising, or what it will cost him, or how long he will have to carry it. He knows only that he cannot refuse her. He has never been able to refuse her anything. He takes the boy from the woman at the bedside. Dark hair, new to the world and furious about it. He wraps him in his cloak and holds him close. Lyanna's eyes close. Ned carries the child back down the stairs. Arthur Dayne is still on one knee when Ned comes back out into the heat. He has not fallen, and Ned understands, looking at him, that he will not fall until he chooses to. That is the kind of man he is, the kind of man he has always been. Ned crosses the ground and stops in front of him. He holds the child so Dayne can see the boy's face. Dayne looks at the child. He knows whose son this is. Rhaegar placed him at this tower with one charge, and the charge was the woman above and the child she carried. He has been keeping this secret since before there was a secret to keep. His name, Dayne says. He speaks slowly, deliberately, each word chosen like it might be his last, because it might be. His name is the Sword of the Morning. Ned stares at him. That title belongs to House Dayne. There has never been one outside your blood. I know. Dayne does not look away from the child's face. I'm the last. There is no Dayne knight worthy of it after me. I have known this for some time. A breath. But this boy will be asked for everything. He will carry weight that breaks men. He should not face it unnamed. He is a bastard, Ned says. The word costs something to say out loud. He has no Dayne blood. He has no claim to the title. He has my word. Dayne looks up at Ned now. His eyes are steady. I am the Sword of the Morning. There is no one left to dispute it. He lifts Dawn. His arm is steady, which it should not be. He holds the hilt toward Ned. Keep it for him, until he is ready. You will know when. Ned takes the sword. It is lighter than he expected, and heavier than he can account for. The blade is not white and not silver, some color that refuses both words and insists on its own. He has heard it described by men who had seen it. Nothing he heard was close to this. He holds Dawn in one hand and the child in the other. Arthur Dayne releases a long, slow breath and leans forward, and doesn't move again. The silence that follows is complete. Ned's one surviving companion stands at the edge of the carnage, watching. He does not speak. There is nothing to say that the silence does not already hold. Ned looks at the sword. He looks at the child. He looks at the 5 men who rode here with him and will not ride back. He looks at Arthur Dayne, lying in the red dirt of the mountains without his sword, the greatest knight who ever lived, reduced by inches to a man the mountains will swallow without any ceremony at all. Robert is being crowned in King's Landing. He does not know what happened here. He will not know. Ned lifts the cloak of a fallen companion from the ground and wraps Dawn in it. The pale blade disappears into rough cloth. He tucks it against his saddle. He settles the child against his chest. He thinks, John. The name arrives without any ceremony. Jon Snow. A bastard's name, a plain name, a lie's armor, the simplest shield he can give to the most complicated child in the world. He turns his horse north. 2 promises, made in the same hour to people who are now dead. One to a dying sister. One to a dying knight. He gave his word to both, and he does not know yet what it will cost, or how long he will have to carry it, or whether he will be strong enough when the weight finally comes due. The mountains are indifferent. The road north is long. He rides. The road south from the Red Mountains is long and dry and silent. Ned Stark rides it with a baby against his chest and one surviving companion at his side, and they do not speak much. There is not much to say. The men they rode with are in the ground behind them. The war they won is already being celebrated in a city neither of them will visit. And somewhere ahead, on a river in dawn, is a castle where a woman has been waiting for word of her brother. They camp on the second night in the shelter of a low ridge. The baby sleeps. The fire is small. Ned's companion looks at him across the flames and says, "Who knows?" Ned understands the question without needing it finished. He thinks through the answer carefully, the way he thinks through everything, not quickly, but completely. "You," he says. "Me. Lyanna is gone." A pause. 3 Kingsguard, and they are gone too. Then it stays between us. Everything stays between us. Ned looks at the bundled child, the parentage, the naming, all of it. His companion nods. He does not need to be convinced. He was at the tower. He knows what is at stake. A man who carries what they carry does not speak of it, because speaking of it is a death sentence for the boy, and they are not the kind of men who sentence children to die. They separate the next morning. Ned rides on alone. He looks at the child's face in the early light. Dark hair, even this young. The Stark look, not the Targaryen look, which is the only mercy in all of this. A silver-haired child would be a question no one could answer safely. This child is dark and ordinary-looking, and has no idea yet that he has already been given more names and burdens than most men receive in a lifetime. Ned decides. Jon. Jon Snow, the plainest shield he has. He rides south. Starfall rises from the banks of the Torrentine on the 3rd day after his separation from his companion. It is a castle of pale stone, lower and older than Winterfell, surrounded by Dornish heat and the sound of water running fast over rock. The Dayne banner hangs at the gate, a black sword within a falling star on a blue field. Ned looks at it for a moment before he rides under it. The sword on that banner is Dawn. He is carrying Dawn against his saddle, wrapped in a dead man's cloak. He does not know how to begin this conversation. A steward meets him in the courtyard. Ned gives his name. He asks to speak with Lady Ashara Dayne. She comes to the receiving hall quickly. She is young, younger than Ned expected, with dark hair and violet eyes, and she has been crying, though she stops the moment she enters the room and sees a stranger standing in it. She holds herself with the composure of someone who has been preparing for bad news and has decided not to be undone by it in front of witnesses. "Lord Stark," she says. "My lady." Ned looks at her. He does not know how to soften what he is about to say, so he does not try to soften it. "Your brother is dead. He died in the battle." She knows this already. He can tell. The news has traveled ahead of him, in pieces, the way bad news always does. But knowing a thing and hearing it said plainly are 2 different experiences. She looks at the wall behind him for a moment. Then she looks back at him. "Tell me how," she says. He tells her. He leaves nothing out of the battle. The companions who fell, the 2 Kingsguard who died before Arthur, the way Arthur fought until the very end, and still would not fall. He does not call Arthur's death a waste. He calls it what it was, the end of the greatest knight he ever faced, who went down without giving an inch. Ashara listens without interrupting. Then he tells her about after. He tells her that Arthur was still alive when the fighting ended, that he heard the baby crying from the tower window, that he did not fall until he had said what he needed to say. This is where her composure begins to crack, very slightly, at the edges. "What did he say?" she asks. It is not quite a question. Ned tells her about the naming. He watches her face change as the words land. He tells her that Arthur named the child Sword of the Morning. He tells her that Arthur placed Dawn in his keeping for the boy. He tells her that Jon is his bastard son, and the boy's name is Jon Snow, and he does not tell her what Jon's blood actually is, because that is a secret that lives or dies in the number of people who carry it. The silence after he finishes is long. Then Ashara says, "A bastard. Yes. Arthur gave our house's most sacred title to a bastard who is not even a Dayne." Her voice does not rise. It is very flat and very controlled, and the flatness of it is worse than anger would have been. Arthur made the choice. He was the sword of the morning. He was my brother. She turns away from him. She walks to the window and stands there, looking out at the Torrentine. Ned watches her and says nothing, because there is nothing to say that does not make this worse. She is right that it is an extraordinary thing Arthur did. She is right that it breaks a tradition that has held for generations. He cannot argue with her grief. She turns back around after a long moment. "Is the child here?" "He is." Ned crosses the room and sets the sleeping boy on the table, carefully, so as not to wake him. Ashara looks at Jon. She looks at him for a long time, dark-haired, small, unknowing. She reaches out and touches his cheek with 2 fingers, very gently, and the boy stirs but does not wake. "He looks like a Stark," she says. "He does. He does not look like a Dayne." "No," Ned agrees. She picks the child up. She holds him, and she looks down at his face, and Ned watches something shift in her expression. Not acceptance, not yet, but something that is not entirely refusal either. The anger does not leave, but it makes room. "I cannot contest what Arthur chose," she says finally. "He was the last. There is no authority left who could override him." She says this the way a person says something that is true and that they wish were not. "But I will not simply hand you the sword and watch it walk out of this house in the arms of a boy who has never set foot in Dawn, who does not know what it means, who has not earned anything yet." "I am not asking you to," Ned says. Ashara looks at him. "Then what are you asking?" "Nothing. I am asking for nothing. Arthur asked me to keep it for him. If you say it stays here until the boy is old enough to understand, that is a condition I will accept." She considers this for a moment. She's still holding the baby. "He comes here himself," she says, "when he is old enough. He walks into this house and he asks for it with his own voice. Not a letter, not a messenger. Him." She looks down at Jon. "If Arthur chose him, he has to be able to choose it back." "Agreed," Ned says. She hands the child back to him. She does not look at the wrapped bundle against Ned's saddle, Dawn in its dead man's cloak, and Ned doesn't offer it. That is the terms. The sword stays. He leaves Starfall the next morning. He does not look back at the Palestone Tower as he rides out, but he thinks of it. In the world that did not diverge at the Tower of Joy, Ashara Dayne threw herself from that tower into the sea, some weeks after the war ended, after she had received Dawn from Ned's hands and had nothing left to wait for. She does not throw herself from it now. She is standing somewhere in that castle with her brother's impossible last act in her hands. And it is not a comfort, and it is not peace, and it does not replace the brother she has lost. But it is a charge. It is an unanswered question. It is the specific shape of a grief that still has something unfinished at the end of it. She cannot put it down until she sees what the boy becomes. Ned rides north with a baby and no sword and 2 dead people's wishes, and behind him, Starfall recedes into the Dawnish heat, and inside it, a woman stays alive because she has to. Winterfell is built around hot springs, and in the deep cold of winter, the steam rises off the water and moves through the castle like something alive. Jon Snow grows up learning the shape of it, the way heat pools in the lower corridors, and the chill comes hard through the outer walls, the sound of the godswood in wind, the smell of the crypts where the Stark kings lie in stone with iron swords in their laps and stone direwolves at their feet. He learns Winterfell the way all children learn the place they grow up in, by running through it until it becomes part of him, until he knows every shortcut and every corner, until it answers back when he moves through it like a body that recognizes its own bones. He knows from a young age that he does not fully belong to it. He has dark hair and grey eyes and a long face, and these things are stark, and Winterfell is stark, but there is a word that sits beside his name that does not sit beside the names of any of the others. Jon Snow, the bastard. The question no one answers. He knows what the word means before he is old enough to understand why it applies to him, because children always know the shape of a wound before they understand what made it. Lady Catelyn is fair-haired and blue-eyed, and holds herself with the precision of a woman who has never let anyone see her bend. She doesn't shout at Jon. She doesn't strike him. She is simply cold to him in the way that a stone wall is cold, not cruel by intention, but incapable of warmth. Jon learns early that he will not look to her for comfort, and he stops looking, and eventually he stops noticing the absence. He has Robb. Robb was born the same year he was, both of them arriving in 283 AC, like the same season's reign, though Catelyn was already carrying Robb when Ned rode south to war. Robb has his mother's colouring and his father's decency, and he does not care about the word that sits beside Jon's name. They grow up as brothers because no one explains to either of them why they should not. Ned Stark trains them both, but he does not train them the same way. With Robb the training is thorough, with Jon it is relentless. Jon is in the yard before first light when the others are still sleeping. He runs drills until his arms shake, and then he runs them again. He learns to fight through fatigue the way other boys learn to read, by repetition until it becomes reflex. He does not understand it, not at first. He does not understand why the yardmaster stops Robb when he tires, but looks to Jon and says, "Again." He asks his father about it once. They are in the training yard alone after the others have gone in, Jon's breath coming hard in the cold air. He asks why. Why harder for him? Why always more? Ned is quiet for a moment. He looks at Jon the way he looks at problems he is trying to solve without causing harm. Because one day someone will ask more of you than they ask of anyone else, he says. Jon waits for more. There is no more. Ned picks up the practice blade and sets it in Jon's hand and says, "Again." Jon goes to the godswood sometimes and watches his father pray. Ned goes alone, always, early in the morning or late at night, and he kneels before the heart tree with its face carved into the pale wood, the red sap like tears. Jon does not follow him in. He watches from the edge of the trees. He does not know what his father says to the old gods, or whether the old gods answer. He watches the stillness of it, the absolute weight of it, the way Ned Stark can be still with a grief Jon has no name for yet, and Jon files it away. The way he files away everything he doesn't understand. Around his 7th year, he finds Ned in the armory late in the afternoon. His father is standing at the high table with a letter open in his hands. Ned does not hear him come in. Jon sees the seal before his father folds the paper away, a black sword within a falling star on a blue field. "Who wrote to you?" Jon says. Ned folds the letter once more and puts it inside his coat. "Friends in Dorne." "Did they know my mother?" The armory is very quiet. Somewhere outside, 2 guardsmen are talking in the yard, their voices carrying thin through the stone walls. Ned looks at Jon for a moment, and the look is careful, and it is also sorry, and it is the specific expression of a man who has too much truth and too little of it he can give. "Go and wash up," he says. "Supper soon." Jon goes. He is 7 years old. He already understands that the silence is an answer of its own kind, not the answer to the question he asked, but an answer about the shape of the space where the answer lives. He is a bastard who trains like a lord's heir. He is a bastard whose father gets letters from dawn. He is a bastard whose father will not tell him who his mother was. He knows there is a shape to this. He does not know what it is. The stories about Arthur Dayne begin around this time, or maybe they have always been there, and Jon is only old enough now to hold on to them. Ned does not tell the stories with any obvious purpose. They come up the way all his father's stories come up, obliquely, unprompted, threaded through the middle of other things. He calls Arthur Dayne the finest knight he ever saw. He says this plainly, without drama, the way he states plain facts. He describes the sword Arthur carried, pale as milk glass, something the eye could not entirely categorize. He describes the way Arthur moved with it. He describes the standard of the thing, the quality of it, what it meant to face a man like that, and understand that the craft of fighting had a ceiling you could not see until you were standing underneath it. He never tells the story of how Arthur died. Jon memorizes the name the way he memorizes things he does not yet understand but suspects he will need. Arthur Dayne, the sword of the morning, a knight who carried a pale sword forged from a fallen star, a knight who was the finest his father had ever seen. He does not know why it matters. He has no way to know. He is 10 years old when the chapter of his childhood closes, and this is what he is. A bastard in his father's house, who trains as though the training is life and death, who knows more about a dead Dornish knight than about his own mother, who has seen the sigil of House Dayne on a letter his father carries from friends he will not name. He is dark-haired and grey-eyed, and strong for his age, and behind his eyes there is a question that has been growing since he was old enough to form questions, patient and unspoken and very, very large. And in a castle on the Torrentine, a sword waits in its scabbard, and no hand draws it. Ned takes Jon to the Godswood in the early morning, before anyone else is awake. The heart tree stands at the center of it, white bark, carved face, red eyes that are really just sap and do not move but seem to. The Godswood is cold even in the thaw season. Sound does not carry in from the castle. It is the one place in Winterfell that feels sealed off from everything else. Jon is 10 years old, nearly 11. He knows something is coming by the way his father walks. Ned stops before the heart tree and turns to face him. He does not kneel. He looks at Jon the way he looks at things that matter, steadily, without blinking away from them. "I am going to tell you something," he says, "and you are going to keep it secret for as long as Robert Baratheon sits the Iron Throne. Not a word. Not to Robb, not to anyone. Can you do that?" Jon says yes. He means it. Ned tells him about Arthur Dayne. He tells it the way he has told pieces of it before, in small doses, unprompted. But now he tells all of it. The greatest warrior who ever lived. The sword of the morning. The blade called Dawn, forged from the metal of a fallen star, pale as milk glass, something no other sword in the world is like. He tells Jon what it meant to carry that title. He tells Jon what Arthur Dayne was. Not just a great fighter, but the pinnacle of a thing. The proof that a human being could raise the craft of knighthood to something that almost didn't seem human anymore. Jon listens. He has memorized pieces of this already. Now he gets the rest. In his dying moments, Ned says, Arthur Dayne named you his successor. He placed Dawn in my keeping for you. He named you Sword of the Morning. The God's Wood is very quiet. Jon says, Why me? Because he believed you would be worthy of it. Was he right? Ned looks at him for a long moment. I don't know yet, he says. Neither do you. He does not tell Jon who his mother was. Jon asks. He has to ask. He has asked before. He will keep asking for as long as it takes. And Ned says, Your blood is not dishonored. More than that, I cannot give you while Robert lives. And there is something in the way he says it that closes the door without slamming it. Jon does not push. He has learned when his father's silences are walls. He walks back through the God's Wood alone, ahead of his father, and he thinks about what he has just been told. He does not feel excited. He feels the weight of it. He already trained harder than anyone else at Winterfell. He already knew that something was expected of him that no one could name. He knew the shape of the expectation without knowing its source. Now he has a source. A dead knight he never met, in a tower in Dawn, named him with his last breath, put a charge on him before he was old enough to refuse it. He is 10 years old. He goes back to the yard and asks the master-at-arms to run the morning drills again. 3 years pass. Jon is 13 when Ned takes him south to Starfall for the first time. It is a long ride, north to south, through the breadth of the realm, down through the Neck and the Riverlands and the Reach, and then into the heat of Dawn, through the Red Mountains and out the other side. Jon watches the land change the way he watches everything, carefully, quietly, filing it away. He has never been this far from Winterfell. He does not say so. He watches the color of the earth shift from grey-brown to red-orange, watches the trees thin and the sun get harder, watches Dawn open up around him like a place that belongs to a different world than the one he grew up in. Starfall sits on the Torrentine River, pale stone walls catching the light. The Dayne banner hangs at the gate, the black sword within the falling star. Jon looks at it and feels something move in his chest. He has known that sigil from the letter in his father's armory. Seeing it full-sized, flying in the Dawnish wind, is a different experience. Ashara Dayne meets them in the main hall. She is tall and dark-haired with violet eyes, and she carries herself with a stillness that Jon recognizes from his father. Not peace, exactly, but the discipline of someone who has decided not to be undone by things. She looks at Ned briefly. Then she looks at Jon. She looks at him for a long time. He holds still under it, the way he holds still under the Sword Master's assessment, the way he holds still when something is being measured. He does not know what she is looking for. He lets her look. He has Ned Stark's look, she says finally. He does, Ned says. Arthur chose by instinct, she says. I could never tell if his instinct was genius or arrogance. Sometimes there is no difference. She looks at Jon again. Come. She takes them through the castle and into a lower hall, and there it is. Dawn sits in a place of honor on a stand of dark wood, pale as bone, pale as the first light of a day that hasn't broken yet. Some color the eye cannot quite finish, not white and not silver, and not the color of any metal Jon has ever seen. The blade is still. The hall around it is still. Jon stops walking when he sees it. He has heard it described so many times. Nothing, he was told, was close to the actual thing. He steps forward slowly. He reaches out and touches the flat of the blade with 2 fingers. It is cool, solid. It does not feel like anything mystical. It feels like the best version of a thing that already exists. "Arthur named you," Ashara says, from behind him. "I don't know why. I have thought about it for 10 years, and I don't know why. But you will have to show me." The next morning, a Dayne man-at-arms takes John to the yard. He is a veteran, older than John's father, built like a man who has spent his whole life in armor. He does not introduce himself. He just picks up a sword and turns to face John, and his eyes say, "Show me what you are." John fights him. He is 13. He does not win. But he fights the way Ned taught him, not with flash, not with bravado, but with patience and economy, reading what the man gives him and answering exactly what is asked. He eats 2 clean hits and lands one of his own and does not drop his guard when his shoulder rings from a heavy blow. When the man-at-arms calls it and steps back, John is still on his feet with his blade up. Ashara watches from the gallery above the yard. She does not come down. She watches, and she does not speak, and when it is over, she turns and walks back inside. She does not put Dawn away before they leave. She leaves it on its stand in the lower hall, in its place of honor. John sees it one more time as they walk through on their way to the stables. He does not touch it again. The ride north is mostly silent. John and his father travel side by side through the long, dawnish afternoon, and eventually John asks the question again, the only question that still does not have an answer. "Who was my mother?" Ned's jaw tightens, just briefly, just a flicker. "A woman who loved fiercely," he says, "and who died too young. More I cannot give you yet." John nods. He doesn't push. He knows by now what his father's yets mean. Not never. Just not now. Just not while the secret has to hold. He thinks about Dawn. He thinks about Ashara's face in the gallery above the yard, watching without expression while he ate 2 hits and landed 1. He thinks about her words. "You will have to show me." He rides north. The name Sword of the Morning sits somewhere behind his eyes. Not a gift. A charge from a dead man he never met, paid forward through his father's hands, waiting in a castle on the Torrentine for proof he does not yet have. He trains with it behind his eyes every day from that point on. The shape of it is not clear. The weight of it is. They separate at the crossroads where the King's Road forks, one road bending south toward King's Landing, the other running north toward the wall. Ned is going south because Robert Baratheon has called him to serve as Hand of the King, and John is going north because it is 298 AC, and he is 15 years old and he has made a choice. Before they part, Ned stops his horse and looks at his son. "The blade," he says. "You are ready to take it with you?" John nods. He has thought about this since Starfall 3 years ago. He has thought about it every day since the Godswood, every day since Ned put the shape of Arthur's charge into words. A bastard does not own much, but a bastard with a dead knight's sword in a plain scabbard on his saddle carries something, even if no one around him knows what it is. "Keep it hidden," Ned says. "No one at the wall needs to know what it is. Not yet. Not until you have earned the right to speak its name openly." "I know." Ned is quiet for a moment. He looks older than John remembers him looking, even from a year ago. The lines on his face are the lines of a man who carries things he cannot put down. "If I do not return from King's Landing," he says, "look among your personal effects. I have put a sealed letter there. It holds the piece of the truth I have not been able to give you yet." John stares at him. "You expect not to return." "I expect to return, but I am going to a city full of people who do not share my values, and I am going to serve a king whose court is a knife fight in fine clothes. He looks at John steadily. A careful man makes provisions. John does not ask about the letter. He does not ask what truth it holds. He has learned how to carry the unanswered things. They embrace. Ned rides south. John rides north. The wall rises out of the world 3 days later. 700 feet of ice, stretching east and west as far as the eye can follow. Something so large it stops feeling like a thing and starts feeling like a condition of the landscape. John has seen it described. He has heard his father speak of it. Seeing it is something else. He rides under it through the tunnel carved into its base, and when he comes out the other side, the world is colder and darker and immeasurably older. Castle Black sits at the wall's base on the south side, a sprawl of dark stone buildings, half of them falling into disrepair from long years of thinning numbers. Men move through it in black cloaks. The black of the night's watch is different from the black of mourning clothes. It is duller, more total, the black of a thing that does not ask to be looked at. John is given a cell, assigned to the stewards, and begins to learn the wall. He takes the oath on a cold night, kneeling before a weirwood stump in a circle of fire with the other new recruits around him. The words are ancient. They have been said by men at this spot for thousands of years, and they carry the weight of all that repetition. Night gathers, and now my watch begins. It shall not end until my death. He speaks the words clearly. He means them. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. He hears this line differently from the others. He has always heard it differently from the others, because the others have nothing it costs them to swear away. He has a charge from a dead man. He has a title given in a dying breath. He has a sword in a plain cloth scabbard, sitting in the gear cache of the steward's hall, and the title that goes with it is a kind of crown, and he has just sworn before gods, old and new, to win no glory. He does not break step in the oath. He speaks it through to the end. He is sworn. He thinks about it afterward, alone. He turns it over. He is 15. He is a member of an ancient order that has just asked him to give up everything, and one of the things he has given up is the right to be what Arthur Dayne named him. Or perhaps not. The watch oath was written for a different world, a world before the things beyond the wall, a world where glory was a king's court and a crown was a crown. Arthur Dayne never wore a crown. He wore a sword. Jon Snow does not know yet whether those are the same thing. He puts it aside. He has a great deal of other work to do. The Lord Commander of the Night's Watch is a man named Jeor Mormont, old, broad-shouldered, blunt in the way of men who have been too long in hard places to bother with softness. He notices Jon quickly. Jon notices him noticing. He does not know yet whether this is good or bad. He keeps his head down and does his work and tries to understand how the watch functions before he tries to understand how to be useful to it. The white comes on a night in the autumn. Jon smells it before he sees it, or rather, does not smell it, which is worse, because the thing in the Lord Commander's chambers has no smell, no heat, no sound of breath. It is dead and it moves, and its eyes are wrong, and it does not stop when Jon hits it. He burns it. He burns it with lamp oil and fire, and it falls and does not get up. Mormont looks at him the next morning across the great table in his solar. The old man's raven sits on a perch in the corner and watches with its flat black eyes. "You saved my life," Mormont says. "The fire saved your life," Jon says. "I just had the lamp." Mormont looks at him a moment longer. Then he opens a chest and puts a sword on the table. It is long and pale grey, and carries the particular look of Valyrian steel. The rippled surface, the edge that seems sharper than any edge made by ordinary men. "Longclaw," Mormont says. "It is a bastard sword. Your length. It was my son's, and he shamed it. I have had the pommel replaced. The pommel is a dire wolf. It should be carried by someone who will not shame it." Jon takes it. He turns it in the light. It is the most extraordinary weapon he has ever held, with the exception of Dawn, which is not a comparison he is prepared to make out loud. He carries Longclaw at his belt from that day forward. He does not tell Mormont about Dawn. He does not tell anyone. The pale blade stays wrapped in its rough-spun cloth in the gear cache. His watch sword is Longclaw, which is Mormont's trust-made metal, and it is enough. It is more than enough for any ordinary life. But Jon Snow is beginning to understand that his life is not going to be ordinary. The Raven arrives from King's Landing 11 months later. Jon is 16, and already a man of the Watch by the standards of the Black, already assigned to ranging duties, already learning the shape of the wilderness north of the Wall. He reads the message in the narrow light of a winter morning, standing in the yard at Castle Black. And the yard does not change, and the cold does not change, and the wall above does not change, and everything else does. Ned Stark, beheaded on the steps of the great sept of Baelor, executed on the order of the king. He reads it twice. He reads it a third time. He puts the letter in his coat. He goes through the rest of the day. He eats. He stands his post. He attends the evening assembly. He does not cry, and he does not rage, and he does not let any of it out, because he is a man of the Watch now, and the Watch does not stop for grief. He has sworn his watch until his death, and the watch must go on even when the person who taught him what duty was is lying in the ground. That night he goes to the gear cache where Dawn is stored. He takes it out in its wrapping cloth. He does not unwrap it. He sits with it in his lap in the dark of the cache room, surrounded by the smell of leather and oil and old wool, and he holds the shape of it through the cloth. The weight of it, the length of it. His father is dead. The only man alive who knew both secrets, the parentage and the naming, is dead. The letter exists somewhere in his personal effects, wherever those are now, and he does not know what it says, and he cannot ask anyone to explain it. He holds Dawn in the dark for a long time. Then he puts it back. He has no right to unwrap it yet. He is 16. He has not been worthy of it. Arthur's charge still stands, whether its explainer is alive or dead, and Jon Snow does not break charges just because they become harder to carry. He goes back to his cell. He lies on his bunk and looks at the ceiling in the dark. He thinks of his father's face at the crossroads, older than he should have been, saying, "A careful man makes provisions. The provision exists, somewhere. Jon does not know yet how much he will need it, or how long he will have to wait. He closes his eyes. The wall does not sleep, and so he does not sleep. And when the bell calls the night watch, he is already dressed, and on his feet. The Great Ranging leaves Castle Black in the year 299 AC. Hundreds of men riding north through the tunnel in the wall and out into a world that does not recognize the authority of any king or castle. Jon rides with them. He carries Longclaw at his belt, and Dawn wrapped in rough-spun cloth, tied across his saddle, indistinguishable from a bedroll or a spare cloak. He has carried it this way for a year. He has practiced at not looking at it. The ranging spreads out through the haunted forest north of the wall. They find the dead first, wildling bodies, killed in ways that do not make sense, arranged in a pattern that doesn't make sense. Then they find worse things. John has heard about the dead that move. He has heard the Watcher's stories. Hearing and seeing are different, as he has learned more than once. The veteran ranger pulls him aside on the third week. He is the most experienced man on the ranging, lean and hard and weathered, with a face that looks like it has seen everything the North has to offer, and decided none of it is impressive enough to flinch from. He explains what has to happen. John must go among the wildlings as one of them. He must convince them he has turned his cloak. There is only one way to prove it convincingly, and the veteran ranger is prepared to be the proof. John doesn't want to do it. The veteran ranger tells him what he already knows. The wildlings will accept nothing less. A man who crosses to them must show his crossing. The veteran ranger is not asking for John's feelings about it. He is asking him to be willing to do the hard thing, and the veteran ranger made his choice about that a long time ago. John does it. He rides away from the ranging and into the wildling camp with blood on his hands, and an explanation that holds, and the wildlings take him in the way predators take in strays, warily, at a distance, until they decide he is not a threat, and then, with a rough and genuine acceptance that surprises him. He is with them for the better part of 2 years. He learns them. He learns their language, not the words, but the way they use them, the directness of it, the lack of ceremony. He learns that they do not have lords, and they do not want lords, and they have reasons for this that are not as simple as stubbornness. He learns that they are afraid of what is coming from the north. They call it the cold. They call it the other thing. They do not name it in the dark. A wildling woman notices Dawn on the 2nd week. She has sharp eyes and the habit of inventory. She is the kind of person who catalogues what the people around her carry, what they own, what they guard. She watches John unsaddle his horse and detach the wrapped cloth from the saddle straps and tuck it beside him when he sits, and she watches him do this every night, and she asks him what it is. He says, "A family heirloom." She says it must be some heirloom, the way he holds it. She says most men's family heirlooms end up sold for grain in bad winters. He says his did not. She pushes, because that is her nature. She pushes at things the way wind pushes at shutters to find what is not fully latched. He lets her. He is vague in a way that gives her nothing to hold. Eventually she gives up and mocks him for being sentimental about a lump of cloth, and he accepts the mockery, and the wrapped sword stays wrapped. The moment of real danger comes 6 weeks into his time among them, when a wildling elder who has lived twice as long as most of the men around him, a trader in a former life, a man who has been as far south as the coast of Dawn, sees a glint of pale blade when the wind kicks up a corner of John's pack. He stops moving. He looks at the glint. He looks at John. "That is not a northern blade," he says. John does not react. He picks up the pack and tucks the cloth flap back down. It is an old blade. Not worth much. I have been in the south. The elder is watching him with the patience of a man who has traded across long distances and learned that the people who claim something is worthless are often the most attached to it. I have seen pale swords in Dawn, ceremonial things, milk glass color. This belonged to a dead man, John says. It is worthless to anyone but me. The elder looks at him for a long moment. He is not certain. John can see him turning it over, not quite landing on an answer. If he lands on the right answer, this ends very badly. John holds still and looks back and does not blink. The elder lets it go. He shrugs and moves on to the next thing, the way old traders move on from things that are not obviously profitable. John breathes. He understands, sitting with it afterward, that this is not sustainable. Dawn cannot be concealed forever. Every day he carries it, the risk grows, The wrapped cloth fools people once, twice, but the longer he carries it, the more chances something has to be seen by someone who knows what to do with the sight. He does not know what to do about this. He puts it away and thinks about something else. He returns to the watch when the wildling army turns south toward the wall. He cannot be part of what comes next. His watch was not finished. His watch will not be finished. He breaks from the column in the night and rides hard for Castle Black. And behind him, a wildling army rides toward the wall with a purpose that is not going to end well for anyone. The Battle of Castle Black is a night of fire and arrows, and men dying on both sides of the same argument about whether the wall is a door or a wall. Jon fights for the side with the gate. He fights well, not with Dawn, which stays wrapped and hidden, but with Long Claw, which is everything a watch sword should be, and leaves no questions behind when it does its work. The wildling woman who had catalogued what he carried and pushed at him every time he would not explain. She is killed in the battle. A young archer's arrow finds her in the chaos, and she falls, and she does not get up. Jon learns of it after. He does not perform a grief he hasn't earned the right to perform in front of people who don't know enough to understand it. He carries it internally, the way he carries everything. She was not his, but she was real, and she is gone. And one more piece of evidence has settled into the category of things Jon Snow knows that he didn't want to know. He knows now, past all doubt, that the people north of the wall are not the enemy. They are afraid, and they are running. The enemy is the thing they are running from. He has seen the evidence in the arrangement of the dead. He has seen the direction the wildlings look when they think no one is watching, which is north, always away. The real thing is in the cold. The real thing is coming. He sits after the battle with Long's Claw across his knees and thinks about Dawn in its cloth, sitting in the gear cache where he stowed it before the fighting started. 2 swords, 2 different claims on who he is. Long Claw says he is a man of the watch, a steward of other men's safety, sworn to hold the wall until he dies. Dawn says he is the sword of the morning, a dead man's unprecedented last choice, something without a clear precedent in any code Jon has ever read. He does not know how to carry both forever. He goes to the gear cache when the castle is quiet. He unwraps Dawn. He holds it fully for the first time, not through cloth, not through the fabric of someone else's keeping. Just the bare sword, his hand on the grip, the pale blade catching the low firelight of the cache room. The color of it does not resolve. It is not white. It is not silver. It is what it is. He holds it for a long time. He does not swing it. He does not practice with it. He sits and holds it and thinks about a man he never met who saw a newborn baby and made a choice with his last breath. Then he wraps it again and puts it back. He has not been worthy of drawing it yet, he thinks. Not fully. Not in the way that Arthur meant. He is getting closer. He can feel the shape of it, the way you can feel the shape of a room in the dark by the way sound moves through it. But he is not there. He goes back to his duties. The wall holds. The cold waits. The real war has not started yet. The vote is close, as votes at Castle Black always are. But it goes to Jon. He is 19 years old when they name him Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, the oldest organization in Westeros, the last line between the realm and whatever moves in the dark north of the wall, and now it belongs to him, not as an inheritance, not as a birthright, but because the men who have survived everything the North has shown them looked around at who was left standing and chose him. He stands in the great hall after, and thinks about Arthur Dayne naming him something in a dying breath, and about the watch oath that says he will wear no crowns and win no glory, and he thinks these two things have been in tension since the day he arrived at Castle Black, and they are in tension now, and he does not know yet how to resolve the tension, but he is Lord Commander, and the work will not wait for him to figure it out. A young scholar of the Watch, round-faced, soft-spoken, brilliant in the way of people who have read more than they have lived, had worked the vote before John knew there was a vote to work. He had spoken quietly to the right men, and counted the numbers, and made the outcome more likely than it would have been without him. John thanks him in private. The scholar looks at him with a kind of worried hope, the expression of someone who believes very strongly in the right outcome, and is terrified the right outcome will waste itself. "Don't get killed," the scholar says. He leaves for the citadel not long after, to train as a Meister, because the Watch needs people who know things, and he has decided that knowing things is how he will serve it. John watches him ride south and thinks, I hope he comes back. The wildling decision is the first real test of what Lord Commander means. The dead are coming north of the wall. Every corpse left up there is not a loss for the living. It is a gain for the Night King. Every body that falls in the snow and does not burn is a soldier added to an army that does not stop and does not tire, and does not fear anything the living have learned to use as a weapon. This is the arithmetic John brings to his officers. He brings it clearly, without apology, because there is no version of this argument that is comfortable, so he does not try to make it comfortable. He tells them, the wildlings come south. Every living person we leave north of the wall becomes the enemy's weapon. There is no strategic value in their deaths if their deaths make us weaker. The officers do not receive this well. He knew they would not. Sir Alistair Thorne, who has hated John with the patient consistency of a man who has decided what he thinks and will not be disturbed by evidence, says that the wildlings are the enemy and have always been the enemy, and that the Lord Commander has forgotten his oath in favor of sentiment. He says it clearly, and in front of the other officers, the way a man says something when he wants it on the record. John says, I have forgotten nothing. The oath says, I will hold the wall. This is how I hold it. The conversation is over. It is not over. But John is Lord Commander, and the conversation moves on to logistics. The wildling chieftain comes to him that night. He is big and loud, and does not stand on ceremony. The kind of man who takes up more space than he needs and makes no apology for it. He has a quality John has learned to respect in the time he spent north of the wall. He says what he actually thinks, because the wildlings have no structure of polite deceit, and he does not see the point of inventing one. He sits across from John in the Lord Commander's solar and looks at him for a long time. Who are you really? The wildling chieftain says. John looks back at him. Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. That is what you are called. I am asking what you are. He gestures generally in John's direction. A crow who fights for wildlings is not a crow thing. A Lord Commander who argues his own officers for the lives of free folk is not a thing the Watch has ever made. So where does it come from? John says nothing. The wildling chieftain shrugs. He is not offended by silence. He is a man who asks questions because he wants to know the answers, not because he needs them. When you know, he says, you can tell me. John sits with the question after he leaves. He is 19 and Lord Commander and carrying 2 swords and a dead man's title and a sealed letter he has not opened, and the name of his mother is still a mystery. Who are you really? He does not have a complete answer. He is still assembling one. 3 days later, during the formal confrontation over the wildling decision, Alistair Thorne's search of the Lord Commander's quarters turns up the wrapped cloth. Thorn holds it up. What is this? Personal property. Nothing is personal property at Castle Black. You took the same oath as the rest of us. Jon takes the wrapped sword from him. He holds it at his side. He does not explain it. He looks at Thorn with the patience of someone who has already decided how this ends and is simply waiting for the other party to arrive at the same conclusion. It is a family heirloom, Jon says. It does not leave these walls, and it is not watch property. We are done discussing it. Thorn does not force it. Not yet. He is not ready yet. He backs down with the expression of a man who is storing the moment for later. Men talk. Castle Black is a small world with a long memory, and the officers' quarters have ears. Within a week, a rumor circulates. Jon Snow keeps a Dornish blade hidden. Not a northern blade, not a watch blade. Something from the south. Something pale. Most assume he took it from a wildling during his time north of the wall. A trophy, the kind of thing men bring back from enemy territory. Jon does not correct them. The closer they are to wrong, the safer. He begins planning for Hardhome. The wildling scouts have been sending word for weeks. The remaining free folk are trapped at Hardhome on the northern coast. Too many to abandon. Too many to leave as bodies for the dead to use. Jon decides to go himself. His officers argue against it. He hears them out and goes anyway, because he is Lord Commander, and the decision is his. The night before he leaves, he goes to the weapons cache where Dawn is stored. He unwraps it. He holds the pale blade in the low light of a single candle, turning it slowly. The color of it does not name itself. He has held it this way before, in private, trying to understand what Arthur Dayne saw in a newborn that made him do an unprecedented thing. He is 19 now, and he is going to Hardhome, and he does not know what will meet him there, but he knows it will be the worst thing he has ever faced, because the scouts' descriptions are not the descriptions of something that can be survived without extraordinary measures. He straps Dawn to his back under his cloak. He will ride with both swords. Longclaw at his belt, honest and declared, the sword of the watch and the trust of a dead man who believed in him. Dawn at his back, secret still, the charge of a different dead man who also believed in him. He does not know yet which sword Hardhome will require. He is not willing to arrive without both. He rides north the next morning. Castle Black falls behind him in the grey dawn, its black walls already fading into the grey of the landscape, and he does not look back. He is Lord Commander. He goes where the watch is needed, and the watch is needed at Hardhome, and what happens there will happen. He carries everything he has. He rides toward the cold. Hardhome is a ruin on the northern coast, a village that was once a settlement, once a place where people lived and built and argued and ate their meals, now a collection of walls and rooftops that have been failing for years and have nearly finished. The wildlings who are still here are the ones who could not or would not run south fast enough. They crowd behind the palisade walls and watch Jon's small party ride in, with the expression of people who have learned not to trust anything that arrives from the direction of the wall. Jon doesn't waste time. He meets with the wildling elders and he says what he came to say. The dead are coming. Anyone still north of the wall when the dead arrive will be the dead. There is room south of the wall, and the watch will make room for more. Come south now, while there is still time to come. The elders do not trust him. He is the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and the Night's Watch has been the enemy for as long as anyone here can remember. The wildling chieftain who has ridden with Jon's party speaks on his behalf, and the chieftain is someone they do know, someone whose word carries weight in the way that only the word of a man who has survived everything can carry weight. The negotiation takes most of the day. Wildlings board boats bound south. It is slow work. There are more people here than Jon expected. He is watching the last groups load when the sound changes. It starts at the palisade gate. A crash, a shout, and then screaming. The specific sound of a crowd that has seen something it cannot process. Jon turns toward it. The gate comes apart at the base, the wood splintering from some force applied to it from the outside, and through the gap come the dead. They pour in. Hundreds, moving fast, moving in the particular way of the dead. No fear, no hesitation, no concern for the things that stop living things from walking into danger. They hit the wildlings at the gate first, and the fighting is immediate and savage and wrong, because you can kill a man by hitting him in a way that stops him, and these things do not stop. Jon draws Longclaw. He fights forward into the center of it, because the center is where the people are, and the people have to get to the boats. He is not thinking. He has passed the place where thought happens and arrived somewhere older. Reflex, body, the simple truth of what is in front of him and what it requires. He cuts through wights with Longclaw. They fall when hit right, when the head is separated or the body is stopped hard enough. They fall and sometimes they get back up and he hits them again. A white walker moves through the gate. It is different from the wights. The wights are the dead wearing their own purpose. The walker is something older, something colder, something that projects the cold ahead of it, the way a torch projects heat. Jon moves toward it because the walker is what is organizing them, and something in him knows that the organization is the real danger. He meets it in the open ground between the gate and the docks. It comes at him with a spear of ice, and he blocks it with Longclaw, the two blades hitting with a sound like the world cracking, and then he brings Longclaw back in a wide arc, and the walker shatters. Ice and dust, gone. The wildlings who see it stop fighting for just a moment. Then the wights hit them again, and there is no more time to stare. Jon does not see the second walker come in from his left. He is pulling a wildling woman clear of a wight that has her pinned, and the walker is moving fast, moving directly at his back, and there is no room to turn and bring Longclaw around. His left arm is occupied. There are bodies close on every side, and the walker is already raising its hand. His right hand finds Dawn. He does not decide to draw it. His body decides, because his body has known for years what his hands carry, and what his left side is blocked, and his right is free, and what the thing coming at him requires. Dawn comes out of the scabbard at his back in one motion, and he swings it sideways with everything in him. The blade connects with the walker's arm. The walker recoils. It does not shatter. It does not dissolve into ice and dust the way the first one did. It pulls back, a flinch, a hesitation, the specific body language of something that has just encountered something unexpected. It looks at the pale blade. If a walker can look, if what it does with its eyes constitutes looking, it regards Dawn with something that, in a living thing, Jon would call wariness. He does not wait to understand it. He uses the half-second the walker has given him to find the room to bring Longclaw around, and he uses Longclaw to finish it. Ice, dust, gone. He stands there, breathing, Dawn in his right hand, Longclaw in his left, both out in the open air for the first time. The grey Valyrian blade and the pale one, side by side, both catching the light of the fires that are burning at the palisade walls. The wildling chieftain is 10 feet away, staring at Dawn. There is no time to explain it. There is no time for anything except getting to the boats. They run. The Night King is at the cliff's edge when Jon looks back from the water. He stands there, still, watching the boats pull away from the dock. watching with the patience of something that does not experience time the way the living do, because it has all the time there is. He looks at Jon across the water. Jon looks back at him, dawn still in his hand. The Night King raises his arms. Behind him, on the shore of Hardhome, the dead rise. The ones who fell in the fighting, the ones who were already dead when Jon arrived, the ones who have been lying in the ice for years. They stand up, one after another, in a wave that moves outward from the Night King's raised hands like a tide reversing itself. Hundreds, thousands more than Jon had killed. Jon watches from the boat. He holds Dawn at his side, and he does not look away, because looking away would be a kind of lie, and he has enough lies already. The scale of it is not something a man can absorb all at once. He absorbs what he can and stores the rest. The boats reach the southern shore. What is left of Hardhome belongs to the dead. The men talk on the road back to Castle Black. Jon can hear it. Not the words, but the texture of it. The way conversation sounds when people are trying to understand something they have seen. The pale sword. Where did it come from? What happened when the Lord Commander swung it at that second walker? Why did the thing hesitate? No one at the watch knows enough about Dornish lore to put a name to what they saw. The man who might have known left for Old Town months ago. Without him, the pale blade is a mystery. Dornish, probably. Trophy or heirloom or something stranger. But no one can say which. The wildling chieftain finds Jon alone on the second night of the march back. He sits without being invited, the way he always sits, and he looks at Jon for a moment, with the particular expression of a man who is very direct, and who is about to be very direct. "The pale sword," he says. "Yes. What was it?" Jon looks at the fire. He thinks about how much to say. The wildling chieftain is not a man of the watch. He is not bound by anything Jon carries. He is a man who asked Jon once who he really was, and accepted the silence and waited, and he has been waiting since, and he saw the walker hesitate. "It was a gift from a dead man," Jon says. "What kind of dead man gives a gift like that?" "The best one I ever heard of." The chieftain is quiet for a moment. He looks at the fire. He looks back at Jon. "The walker flinched," he says. "I know. Longclaw didn't make it flinch. The other one did." "I know." The chieftain nods slowly, the nod of a man who is storing information for later. He does not push further tonight. He has a quality Jon has come to rely on, the wildling patience, the understanding that some things reveal themselves in their own time and forcing them only teaches you less. He gets up and goes back to his bedroll. Jon sits with the fire a while longer. He turns Dawn in his hand, the pale blade, the falling star's iron, the color that refuses to name itself. A white walker had looked at it and hesitated. He does not know what that means. He does not know if it means anything. He knows that Valyrian steel kills walkers because Longclaw proved it. He knows that Dawn is not Valyrian steel. He knows that the walker flinched. He wraps the sword in its cloth again, not to hide it any more. They have all seen it now, and the hiding is done. But because he does not yet know how to carry it openly, and old habits are hard to break. Castle Black waits at the end of the road. The wall stands above it in the dark. The dead are behind him, growing in number, and the walker's hesitation is the only new thing he has learned tonight. It will have to be enough. For now. They call it For the Watch. Bowen Marsh is the first, and then Ollie, and then Alistair Thorne, and then the others. 4 blades, then more, each one finding him in the torchlit courtyard while the snow comes down. Jon does not fight back. By the time he understands what is happening, his body has already stopped obeying him. He goes down next to Longclaw, his watch sword, which he did not have time to draw. The snow is very cold on his face. He dies in the yard at Castle Black, and Dawn is in his room. The Red Priestess is in the castle when it happens. She has been at Castle Black for some time, ancient in the way of someone who has forgotten how to count the years, wrapped in red, with eyes that see more than eyes are supposed to see. She does not weep. She does not react with surprise. She goes to the room where John's body has been carried, and she sends everyone out, and she does what her God asks of her. John wakes in the dark. The wounds are closed. He does not understand this at first. He reaches for the pain, the specific pain of blades, finding him again and again, and the pain is gone. His body is his again. The room is quiet. Ghost is beside him. The direwolf is white and enormous and warm, and he presses against John's side in the way of dogs and wolves who have understood something before their people do. John puts his hand in Ghost's fur and breathes. Dawn is beside him on the table. The rough-spun cloth is loose around it, the cloth he has carried since Winterfell, since Ned wrapped it before 298 AC, and said, "Take this north. It is ready." The cloth has been his whole time at the wall, through the wildlings, through Hardhome. He has unwrapped the sword a dozen times. He thought he knew the cloth as well as he knows anything. He looks at the cloth now and sees something he has never seen before. A fold at the inner edge, deep in the lining, where the cloth is doubled over. He has never unfolded it that far. He unfolded enough to get to the sword and no further. He unfolds it now. His fingers find something stiff and sealed inside the fold. He draws it out. A letter. The seal is stark grey, the direwolf pressed into wax, and the hand on the outside is his father's hand. For John. To be read only if I cannot tell you myself. He sits with it for a moment. He is 20 years old. He has just died and come back, and he is holding his dead father's handwriting, and Ghost breathes warm against him, and the room is completely still. He breaks the seal. Ned's letters were always plain. He did not write the way courtiers write, no elaborate address, no ceremony. He wrote the way he spoke, directly, without decoration, with the full weight of what he meant pressed into every word. The letter starts, "John, by the time you read this, I am dead, or you would have heard this from my voice. I am sorry for the last piece. You deserved it spoken, not written." He reads it through once. Then he reads it again, more slowly. His mother was Lyanna Stark, Ned's sister. She did not die of fever. She died in a tower in the Red Mountains of Dawn, of childbirth, because she had been living there in secret for nearly a year, and the child she carried was John. His father was Rhaegar Targaryen, the crown prince, the man Robert hated past reason, past sense, past the end of the war and all the years after, the man the war was nominally fought over. John reads this and sits with it. Rhaegar did not abduct Lyanna. Ned's letter is careful here, deliberate, the words chosen with the precision of a man who knows that the truth is more complicated than the war's story allowed. Rhaegar annulled his marriage to Elia Martell and wed Lyanna in secret, before a septon, legitimately. John is therefore not a bastard. He is not Ned's son at all, though Ned raised him as one, though Ned loved him as one, though Ned has carried the lie of it for 15 years, while John grew up beside the cold of Catelyn's rejection and the warmth of Robb's brotherhood. He is Aegon Targaryen, legitimate son of the Crown Prince, by blood, by law, the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. He reads that line and stops. He puts the letter down. He looks at the ceiling of the small stone room. Ghost shifts beside him. He picks the letter up again. The last part is about Arthur Dayne. Ned writes, Arthur knew. He was there. He was guarding Lyanna on Rhaegar's orders, and he was in the tower when you were born, or close enough to hear. He knew whose son you were. He knew the blood you carried. When he named you Sword of the Morning, he was not doing something arbitrary. He believed what Rhaegar believed, that there was a prophecy, a promised prince, something the world was moving toward. Rhaegar believed in it with his whole life. Arthur believed Rhaegar. The naming was Arthur's way of saying, "This is the one. This child is the point of it." Jon reads this twice. He puts the letter down. He picks up Dawn. The pale blade is the same. It has not changed since Hardhome, since Starfall, since the night Ned unwrapped it for the first and only time and told Jon it belonged to him by a dying man's word. The color of it still refuses to name itself. The weight of it is still the specific weight of something that is lighter than it looks and heavier than it should be. He knows now why Arthur gave it to him. He was not the random recipient of an extraordinary knight's extraordinary last gesture. He was the child Rhaegar built the whole thing around. The child Lyanna died to protect. The child 3 Kingsguard died to guard in a tower in the mountains. Because Rhaegar believed the world needed him and placed its best men between him and everything that wanted him dead. He sits with this for a long time. He thinks about the Watch Oath and what it asked of him. He died. He came back. The oath said his watch would not end until his death, and his death has come and gone, and he is still here with wounds that have closed and breath in his body that was not there an hour ago. His watch has ended. He is free of it. Free of the black cloak. Free of the vow. Free to be something other than the Watch's Lord Commander, which was always too small a thing for what Arthur named him, even if he didn't know it at the time. He is not free of the name Aegon Targaryen. That name is a weapon, a claim, a death sentence in the wrong room, and he is not ready to use it, and the world is not ready to hear it. And there is a war coming that makes the question of who sits the Iron Throne feel abstract against the scale of the dead that are marching south. He is Jon Snow. He will remain Jon Snow. He has been Jon Snow for 20 years, and it is the name he knows how to wear. But he is also the Sword of the Morning. He knows now what that means. He knows now why it was given. Arthur Dayne named him, not because he had no other options, and not from sentiment. He named him because the naming was the last act of a prophecy that Rhaegar spent his life serving, and Arthur spent his life serving Rhaegar, and everything from that moment forward has been the carrying of it. He stands up. He is free of the watch. He has a dead man's letter and a dead man's sword, and a name he cannot yet speak out loud. And north of the wall the dead are moving south in numbers that make every other argument in Westeros feel like a quarrel over table scraps. He holds Dawn at his side. Longclaw is on the floor. He picks Longclaw up with his other hand. 2 swords, 2 identities, a war to fight. He opens the door of the room. Ghost moves with him, pale and enormous, into the cold morning air of Castle Black. Men are in the yard. The men who did not stab him, the wildlings who came through the wall, the survivors of everything that has happened. They see him, and they go still. He does not announce anything. He does not make a speech. He walks into the yard with both swords and his direwolf, and his wounds healed, and his face unchanged, and he looks at the men looking at him, and he says, "We have work to do." That is enough. That is where they start. The North does not come to him easily. Jon rides with Sansa. through a winter landscape that has been stripped by years of conflict and 2 seasons of cold that did not break the way cold is supposed to break. He is free of the watch oath. He is carrying Ned's letter in his coat and 2 swords on his belt and a name he cannot use. He is 20 years old, and he is asking lords to follow him into a war on 2 fronts. A human war over Winterfell, and a larger war that most of them do not believe is real. Sansa is 17, and she is not the girl who rode south with their father in 298 AC. She is something harder and more careful, someone who has learned to listen before she speaks and to calculate the cost of words before she says them. She sits in the councils, and she says the right things to the right lords, and she is better at it than Jon is. And Jon knows this, and he is grateful for it. Lords come. Some bend the knee to him. Some want reasons first. He gives them the reasons: the dead north of the wall, the Night King's army, the scale of what is coming. Most believe him in a partial way, the way people believe things they do not want to be true, enough to act on, not enough to feel. They notice the second sword. He carries Long Claw openly, as always. It is the Watch's blade, the dire wolf pommel, known to anyone who has heard of Jeor Mormont's bastard. The other sword is unfamiliar. The scabbard is plain. He wears it at his back, drawn down to sit along his spine. The lords look at it in council and say nothing, because a man who has died and come back tends to get some latitude on the question of his personal weapons. No one asks. Not yet. The night before the battle, Jon sits alone in his tent with both swords across the table. He puts Long Claw to one side. He unwraps Dawn. He has read Ned's letter 4 times since Castle Black. He has a complete picture now, more complete than he has had at any point in his life. Rhaegar believed in something. Arthur believed Rhaegar. The naming was the last act of that belief, pressed into a dying breath, pressed into an infant too small to carry it, pressed through 20 years of Ned Stark's silence, and the wall and the wildlings and Hardhome. And now it is here, in this tent, in this field outside Winterfell, in his hands. He thinks about Arthur Dayne. He has never met him. He knows him through Ned's voice, the finest knight I ever saw, and through the weight of what the man left behind. He does not know what Arthur's face looked like. He does not know what Arthur sounded like when he spoke. He only knows that a man named Arthur Dayne was the standard against which every fighter in Westeros measured every other fighter, and that man looked at a baby in a dying woman's tower and made an unprecedented choice and believed in it enough to give his last breath to it. Jon is trying to be worth that. He wraps Dawn back. He picks up both swords. He goes to sleep with them beside him. The battle begins at mid-morning. The Bolton commander, the bastard of the Dreadfort, commands from the ridge above the field, flanked by cavalry and spearmen, and the particular cold confidence of a man who knows he has more soldiers and better ground. He has used every advantage available to him, including one that Jon does not have an answer for, until the moment it becomes irrelevant. Jon fights with Long Claw. He has always fought with Long Claw. He is better with it than with any other weapon. He knows its weight, its balance, the exact reach of it. He moves through the field, and Long Claw does what Valyrian steel does. It cuts clean, it holds its edge, it makes what it hits stay hit. Men fall around him, and he does not stop moving. The Bolton line does what it is designed to do. It closes. The spearmen form a circle around Jon's position, shields locking, spears pointing inward, and Jon is suddenly inside a ring of people who intend to kill him, and there are too many of them to fight through with one sword and no room, No running room, no room to swing at full extension. He draws dawn. He does not decide to. He has not made a speech about it, has not planned a reveal, has not chosen a moment. His body finds it the way his body found it, at Hardhome, on instinct, in a space too tight for long claw, with dawn on his back and time running out. The pale blade comes out of the scabbard, and the light catches it. The field goes quiet for the length of a breath. Not all of it. The battle is still happening 20 feet away, men still dying on both sides. But the men in the immediate ring, close enough to see what Jon has drawn, they pause. The Bolton men do not know what the pale blade is. Jon's men do not know what the pale blade is, but it catches the light in a way that steel does not catch light, some quality of the color that demands looking, even when looking, is a tactical error, and for one fraction of a moment the ring holds still. Jon moves. 2 swords in the encirclement, Longclaw in his right hand, Dawn in his left, used not as a great knight uses his best blade, but as a second hand, a blocking weapon, an extension of his body in the tight space. He fights his way out. He does not do it cleanly. He takes hits. He keeps his feet. The Knights of the Vale arrive at the southern edge of the field. The thunder of it reaches Jon before the sight does. Hundreds of mounted knights hitting the Bolton flank, breaking the formation, rolling it back. The Bolton line cannot hold 2 engagements at once. It folds. The Bolton men break toward Winterfell, and their commander is already riding back through the gate ahead of them, because the bastard of the Dreadfort understands what the arrival of the Vale's cavalry means. Jon walks through the field after. He does not put Dawn away. He walks with it in his hand, bloody now. It has done its work, not as an ancient relic but as a sword, and Longclaw in the other, and the men around him part for him, watching. He sheathes Longclaw when he reaches the gate. He sheathes Dawn, both swords at his belt, both visible. He walks into Winterfell. The great hall is cold. It has been cold for a long time. The fires need relighting. The rushes need replacing. Everything about it says this has not been a Stark hall for years, and will need time to become one again. The lords file in. Sansa is there. The surviving northern lords take their places, and Jon stands at the head of the hall, and nobody says anything yet. Then a lord who has been watching Jon all through the campaign looks at the pale sword at his hip and says, "What is that blade?" Jon looks at the assembled lords. He has thought about this moment. He has been carrying the answer to this question for 5 years, and the full truth of it for a matter of weeks. "It is called Dawn," he says. "It belonged to Arthur Dayne, the sword of the morning." The hall is quiet in the way a hall is quiet when people are deciding what to do with information. "He gave it to me," Jon says, in his dying breath at the Tower of Joy in 283 AC. He named me his successor. He named me Sword of the Morning. Nobody moves for a moment. Then Lyanna Mormont speaks. She is at the far end of the table. 12 years old, perhaps 13. Small in her seat the way a person is small in a seat too large for them, but her voice has no smallness in it at all. She is the Lady of Bear Island, and she has been the fiercest voice in every council since the rallying began, and she speaks the way she always speaks, without preamble, without softening. "Arthur Dayne named you Sword of the Morning," she says. "He did." She looks at him for a moment. Then she says, "Then you are." It is not a question. It is a statement of the simplest possible logic. The greatest knight who ever lived made a choice. The choice was made by the only authority capable of making it. Therefore the choice stands. The lords absorb this. Jon can see them working through it. What it means for their oaths, what it means for the North, what it means that their new king is also something that has not existed in living memory. Most of them do not know enough about the Dayne title to argue with it. They know who Arthur Dayne was. They know what it means that he named someone. They do not have the knowledge to say it is impossible. The vote for king in the North happens after. It is not unanimous. It is enough. Jon stands in the great hall of Winterfell with both swords at his belt, and the lords of the North bend the knee, and the hall is cold, and the fires are still being lit, and the dead are still marching south, and he is 20 years old, and king in the North, and the sword of the morning. Both things at once, declared now. No more wrapping cloth, and no more cash in the gear room, and no more hiding what Arthur Dayne decided in a dying breath. He told his father he would keep the secret while Robert lived. Robert is dead. He told himself he would not claim the title until he was worthy. He does not know if he is worthy. He knows that he is what he is. He keeps both swords. He walks into the new reign carrying them. Somewhere south of here, on the Torrentine, a woman who has been waiting for 20 years will hear that a king in the North has called himself Sword of the Morning and carries Arthur's blade at his hip. Ashara Dayne will have something to think about. Dragonstone rises from the sea like something the island pushed up in anger. Dark rock, high walls, architecture that does not soften itself for the people inside it. Jon sails to it in 304 AC, with a small retinue and the specific kind of resolve that comes from having no good options and needing to find the least bad one. The Night King's army is marching south. The wall will not hold it forever. He needs dragon glass from the mines beneath the island, and he needs the dragons, and he needs the woman who has both. Daenerys Targaryen receives him in the throne room. She is 20 years old, silver-haired, with a particular quality of stillness that Jon has seen in leaders before. The stillness of someone who has learned to make their face say nothing while their mind works quickly. She sits in the seat her family built, and she looks at the king in the North who has come to her island, and Jon can tell within the first 30 seconds that she is taking a comprehensive inventory. She looks at Longclaw. She looks at Dawn. 2 swords, she says. One is a watch sword, Jon says. I no longer serve the watch. One was given to me by a dead man named Arthur Dayne. The stillness in her face changes. It does not break. It shifts, reorganizes itself around a new piece of information that she was not expecting and does not know yet what to do with. She knows who Arthur Dayne was. He served her father as King's Guard. He served her brother as the most trusted knight in Rhaegar's circle. He is not a name that arrives in conversation casually, and a man carrying his sword is not a man who can be evaluated by ordinary means. Her hand, the advisor at her right shoulder, the most senior voice in her council, looks at Dawn with a different kind of attention. The attention of someone calculating. Jon looks back at him briefly. The hand says nothing. I have heard that the king in the North called himself Sword of the Morning in the hall at Winterfell, Daenerys says. I did not know whether to believe it. Believe it. She is quiet for a moment. She is not cold after this. She is curious, genuinely sharply curious. The way a person is curious when a new piece of a puzzle lands, and they can see it will change the picture significantly, but they cannot yet see how. She is also wary. She has learned to be wary of things that seem like they should not be possible. Dawn was Arthur Dayne's sword, she says. The Sword of the Morning is a Dayne title. It has never left that house. He gave it in his dying breath. He named me his successor. I am told there is no authority that can override the last sword of the morning. She looks at him for a long moment. Something moves behind her eyes. "After the war," she says finally, "we will talk more about this. After the war." The dragonglass negotiation takes most of the next day. Jon walks the beaches beneath Dragonstone on the second morning, his breath misting in the sea air, thinking through the weight of what is coming. He has 2 conversations ahead of him that he is not ready for. The conversation where he tells Daenerys what Ned's letter says, and the conversation where he goes back to Starfall. He is not ready for either. He is not sure he will be ready before events make readiness irrelevant. Rhaegal finds him on the beach. The dragon comes in from the east, the green and bronze of him catching the morning light, and lands heavily on the rock 20 feet away, with a sound like a building settling. Jon does not run. He stands and looks at the dragon, and the dragon looks at him with eyes the color of gold, and the world holds very still for a moment. He walks toward it. He does not know why. Some part of him knows why, the part that has been reading Ned's letter for weeks and has been carrying Rhaegar's blood for 21 years without knowing what it meant in practical terms. He walks toward Rhaegal, and the dragon watches him come, and does not move, does not pull back, does not do any of the things a creature that does not accept a person would do. He puts his hand on the dragon's head. Rhaegal is warm under his palm. The scales are rough in a specific way, not unpleasant, just completely unlike anything else. The dragon makes a low sound in its throat. Jon stands there for a moment. He is the son of Rhaegar Targaryen, and the dragon is named for Rhaegar, and the 2 of them are on a beach in the winter light, and it is an extraordinary thing, and Jon does not have a word for it. Daenerys watches from the cliff path above. He sees her when he looks up. She is standing still in her grey cloak, and she is watching with an expression that is not quite any of the things he has seen on her face before. Not the stillness of the throne room, not the wariness of the first meeting. She is watching with something that looks like a question she already knows the answer to, which is different from certainty and worse. He does not call up to her. She does not call down. Word comes from the citadel at Old Town on the 3rd day. A scholar there, digging through records from the reign of Aerys II, has found a Septon's journal. The journal records a secret marriage ceremony performed for a prince and a Stark girl in Dorne in the year 281 AC. Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark wed legitimately before a witness after an annulment of Rhaegar's first marriage was obtained. The information is moving north toward Jon. It will arrive at Dragonstone before it arrives anywhere else. Jon already knows. Ned's letter told him everything. He has known for weeks, through battles and campaigns and the cold march south, and he has been carrying it the way he carries everything, without speaking it until he has decided what speaking it means. He is sitting in a room at Dragonstone on the 4th evening, Ned's letter on the table, and Dawn beside it, when he decides to start thinking about how to tell Daenerys. She is his aunt. He is the son of her oldest brother. He outranks her claim by blood. She has 3 dragons and an army. He has 2 swords, a wolf and the north. He does not know how this conversation goes. He does not know if it ends in alliance or disaster. He knows it has to happen before the Night King reaches Winterfell, because after that there may not be anyone left to have it. He is still thinking through the words when the raven arrives. It comes to the Maester's tower and is brought to him still carrying the letter, the seal pressed into the wax clearly, a black sword within a falling star on a blue field. Starfall, House Dayne. He opens it. Ashara Dayne writes with the same plainness Ned Stark used to write. The letter is not long. She says, We have heard that the name was spoken in Winterfell's hall. She says, Arthur chose, and we do not contest the choice. She says, but a title is not proven by claiming it. A blade is not earned by carrying it. She asks the same question she asked 20 years ago, when she was younger, and the grief was raw, and she told Ned to send the boy to Starfall when he was old enough. Will you come here yourself, to this house, and carry that sword through our gate in open daylight, and let the people who knew Arthur Dayne see what he chose? She says, after the war. Jon folds the letter. He sets it beside Ned's letter on the table. 2 letters from people who knew Arthur Dayne. One dead, one alive, one his father by adoption, one the sister of the man who named him. Both of them asking the same essential question in different words. Both of them offering him the same answer. Not yet. After the war. He picks up Dawn. He turns it in the lamplight. The pale blade. The color that refuses to name itself. He has carried it in plain cloth and strapped it under his cloak and drawn it at Hardhome on pure instinct and raised it in the encirclement at the Battle of the Bastards and walked into Winterfell's great hall with it at his hip. He has been carrying it for 6 years, and he still does not know the full shape of what it means. He knows more than he did. He knows whose son he is. He knows why Arthur named him. He knows that Ashara Dayne is alive and waiting, which is the divergence that no one in the realm fully understands yet, that the sword of the morning's last act gave his sister something to live for, and she has been alive all this time, holding Arthur's impossible choice at arm's length and watching. He will go to Starfall, after the war. He will tell Daenerys the truth. Before the war is done, before the last battle comes, he will carry both swords north. He puts Dawn down. He folds both letters carefully and puts them in his coat, next to where Ned's letter has lived since Castle Black. He goes to find Daenerys to talk about the logistics of Dragonglass, which is the next thing that needs doing, the next thing the war requires. And the war does not wait for anyone to be fully ready. He walks with 2 swords and 2 letters, and a truth he has not said out loud yet, toward the woman who will need to hear it most. The dead come at Winterfell from the north and east and west at once, in the dark, in the cold, in numbers that make every previous estimate feel optimistic. The trebuchets fire and the trenches light, and the light is not enough. Nothing is ever enough when the army that comes against you does not tire, does not feel, does not lose morale when its front ranks die, because the dead do not experience loss the way the living do. Jon fights. He goes into it with both swords on his belt and Ghost beside him. And the wolves and the men and the dragons are all moving through the dark and the fire and the screaming. And he does not think. He is past thinking. He has been past thinking in battle since Hardhome, since the night the dead poured through the palisade gate, and he learned what the real war required. He moves and responds and moves again, and Longclaw does its work against the walkers when they come close, Valyrian steel, confirmed, proven, and Dawn does its work against the whites, against the ordinary dead that press in from every direction. The pale blade catches the light. There is very little light in the long night. The fires, the torches, Drogon somewhere above and breathing flame that briefly illuminates wide sections of the field. In those brief illuminations, and in the dark between them, Dawn is visible in a way that other swords are not. The color of it is not white exactly, not silver exactly, but whatever it is, it carries what light exists and gives it back. Men see it in the dark the way sailors see a light on a cliff. They move toward it without deciding to. They orient to it in the chaos. Jon does not plan this. He does not know it is happening until a moment when he looks around and sees that the men nearest to him are nearest, because they followed the pale blade through the dark, and not because anyone ordered them to. He understands it then, briefly, and then the understanding is gone, because there is more fighting to do. He uses Longclaw when the walkers come. He uses Dawn against the whites. The question from Hardhome, why did the walker flinch, is never answered tonight. He does not have the leisure to test it. He has Longclaw for walkers, Dawn for the rest, and the night does not stop long enough for experiments. The dead are everywhere. They fill the ditches and the courtyards and the battlements. They press against the gates and flood through the gaps. Men die and rise again, and the army of Winterfell gets smaller, while the army of the Night King gets larger. And this is the arithmetic of the long night, the arithmetic that cannot be won the ordinary way. Jon fights through it. He does not look at the math. He fights the next thing, and the thing after that, and the thing after that. In the God's Wood, in the dark beneath the weirwood's white branches, Arya kills the Night King. Jon does not see it. He is on the east wall when it happens, cutting through whites with both swords, back to back with the wildling chieftain who has fought at his side since Hardhome. He feels it before he understands it, a shift in the quality of the dark, something that goes very still for a fraction of a moment, and then the white in front of him stops moving, and the one behind it, and the one behind that. The dead fall, all of them, all at once, in the courtyard and on the battlements, and in the gates, and in the trenches, and on the field, beyond the walls. Everything the Night King raised drops, everywhere at once, and the sound of it is something Jon has no word for. It is the sound of absence, the sound of an army that was there and is not. He stands on the east wall in the sudden quiet, with Longclaw in one hand and Dawn in the other, and the long night is over, and the pale blade is streaked with whatever the dead leave behind when they stop being the dead, and the man at his back is breathing hard, and Ghost is alive, and Winterfell is damaged in ways that will take years to repair. He looks at the sky. Dawn is coming. The actual dawn, the real one, the grey edge of morning pushing up from the east after the longest night. He holds both swords and looks at it. He does not know yet what is coming. He does not know yet about King's Landing, about the throne room, about the choice that will be the last defining choice of this chapter of his life. He is standing in the first light of morning after the long night, alive, and the war he has been fighting since Hardhome is over, and everything is still and quiet for the first time in as long as he can remember. The rest comes after. King's Landing burns. Daenerys does what grief and fire and the madness of absolute certainty can do to a person. She flies Drogon over a surrendered city and burns it, and the dead count is too high to speak plainly, and the city is not the enemy, and it never was. Jon walks through the ash and sees what has been done, and he understands what has to happen, and he does what he has to do, and what comes after is the ruin of two people at once, her and him, and the particular silence of a man who is killed for the right reasons and knows that right reasons are not the same as clean ones. He is sentenced to exile. He will go north of the wall, and this is the sentence, and it is also the only place left that makes sense to him. He does not argue it. He has one thing to do before he goes. He sits in a room at Winterfell, and he takes out Dawn, and he takes out paper, and he writes. He writes to Ashara Dayne. He tells her what Arthur told him through Ned's voice, through the letter, through 20 years of carrying a charge without a complete explanation. He tells her that he carried the blade north, and he carried it through the wildlings and through Hardhome, and through the battle of the bastards, and through the long night, and that the pale blade caught what light there was in the dark, and men oriented to it without being told to, which may or may not be what Arthur meant, but is what happened. He tells her he does not know if he was worthy of it. He thinks the honest answer is probably no, that worthiness is the thing you spend a life chasing, not the thing you arrive at. He tells her that Arthur was right about something he could not have fully predicted, which is that the title would be asked for, and the man who carried it would try to answer. He writes, "Dawn belongs to your house. It always did. I am sending it back to you, to hold until the morning comes again for someone else. I do not know when that will be. Arthur named me, and I cannot undo the naming any more than you can. But the title is too large for what I am going to now, and the blade deserves a house, and an open scabbard, and sunlight, not a man going north into the cold with a wolf for company." He folds the letter. He seals it with nothing. He has no seal of his own, no house to seal with. He ties the letter to the cloth that has always wrapped Dawn, the same rough-spun cloth Ned used in 298 AC when he handed the sword to a 15-year-old heading for the wall and said, "Take this north." He wraps Dawn in it one last time. He sends it south with a rider he trusts. He walks out of Winterfell in his black cloak with Longclaw at his belt and Ghost at his side. And the wildling chieftain is waiting with horses at the gate, and they ride north. The wall is damaged. Something of the Night King's work undid a section of it, but north of it the land is quiet. The dead are gone. The cold is just cold now, not a weapon, not the advance of an army. He rides into it. In the south, on the Torrentine, in a castle of pale stone, a rider arrives with a cloth bundle and a letter tied to it. Ashara Dayne takes it in the main hall, the same hall where she received Ned Stark more than 20 years ago with his news of Arthur's impossible last act. She unwraps the cloth, and Dawn is there, the pale blade, unchanged. She holds it. She is not young anymore. Arthur has been dead for 21 years, and she has been waiting, first with fury, and then with grief, and then with something that cannot be named cleanly, the particular condition of a person who stayed alive to see how something turned out, and now knows. She carries Dawn to its place of honor. She sets it on the stand. She looks at it for a long time. The Sword of the Morning is vacant again. The title sleeps, as it has slept between worthies before, as it will sleep until another comes. But this time the sword carries something with it that it did not carry before. The memory of a man who was named in a dying breath and did not ask for it, and carried it through the dark anyway. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but all the way to the end of the longest night the world had ever seen. The morning finds Starfall the way it always does. Quiet, gold, the Torrentine running fast over its rocks below the castle walls. Dawn sits in its case. The title sleeps. Ashara Dayne stands at the window and watches the light come in. And somewhere north of the wall, a man and his wolf and a friend, who does not need the world to make sense of him, ride into a white and quiet land. That is our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the 7 kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and